In today's current PvE sandbox inside of Destiny 2, trace rifles have really risen to the top and are really good. They've been on the rise for a minute now, and we are at the point to where they are a very sought after weapon class, as they are very good and serve multiple purposes. A good trace rifle is a core foundation of rocking a double special loadout very efficiently. You can rock double special without a trace rifle, but having a good trace just complements it so well and allows the setup to run very smoothly. That being said, we are ranking every trace rifle in the game, not worst to first, but we're going to be giving them a bit of a letter grade, a pseudo tier list, if you will. Before we get in, I do have to say this as a disclaimer. I don't think any trace rifle on this list is bad. I don't think any of the trace rifles are bad at all. I just think some are better than others. So if your favorite trace rifle has a lower letter grade than some of the other ones, don't take it personal, bro. It's just pixels on a screen. Also, if you think it built different, please check out the merch store at the top, link in the description. It really does help me out. Other than that, though, let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's go ahead and talk about the first trace rifle of its kind. The good old classic Coldheart straight from vanilla D2. It once found itself as part of a damage meta for early Catalyst days, but now has slid into a nice role for any ARC build. As we know, the Coldheart can spawn its own ionic traces just by killing enemies, which can really help your ability uptime for any ARC build. Pair that with something like a Crown of Tempest, you'll be eating pretty well. And even against healthier major targets due to its Cold Diffusion intrinsic perk, dealing more damage the longer it remains on a target literally means target lock 5 years before target lock was even in the game. How's that for an OG? It's not a boss DPS weapon anymore because no trace rifle is, but it can definitely make work of red bar enemies and really do well against those yellow bar enemies, all while providing you some ionic traces for your ARC abilities. I wouldn't use this gun on anything else but an ARC build, and if you're watching this video at the season it's releasing on, it's a heavy ARC themed season, so Coldheart is living pretty good right now. Overall, for this trace rifle, I have to give this bad boy a smooth A-. We move from an exotic ARC trace rifle to the only legendary ARC trace rifle, that being the Path of Least Resistance from Season 19. This trace rifle has definitely seen a little bit tick up in usage since Lightfall released, mainly due to the upgrade to shoot to loot. If you throw up the perk pool for this gun, you'll see some of the popular options in column 3 would definitely be like stats for all, adaptive munitions, maybe subsistence, but at this point, I'm a big fan of shoot to loot. And then in column 4, the biggest, most popular option by far is Volt Shot, dude. Who doesn't like Volt Shot? Especially now that Jolt has overload stunning capabilities, means that this will always be able to stun overloads even when we don't have overload trace rifle. And if we ever get something like anti-barrier overload, well, the Jolt from Volt Shot from this trace rifle will still stun overload. Just thought I'd mention that. The more you know. If I haven't made it clear already, my preferred role for this specific trace rifle is shoot to loot in the 3rd column and then Volt Shot in the 4th column. Minor perks, I always like to go with Tactical Battery because it does help the reload speed a little bit to help get your Volt Shot off a little bit quicker, as well as a reload speed masterwork. Of course, stability is always pretty nice as well, especially if you got something like shoot to loot on there. Overall, as the only ARC legendary trace rifle currently in the game as of season 21, and the fact that it has Volt Shot and some utility aspect with shoot to loot, I actually have the Path of Least Resistance. A+, baby. A+. Also, the fact that it doesn't take up your exotic slot is a factor in why I have it in the A+ tier. Let's go ahead and take a break from the ARC trace rifles and move over to the Void side of things with the good old Ruinous Effigy. Out of all the trace rifles in the game, this one feels like it's the least talked about. But out of all the trace rifles in the game, this one feels like it's the most unique, as final blows with this weapon collapse victims into void transmutation spheres. What? These transmutation spheres you create can be picked up and wielded as weapons by you or your allies. You can use a light attack or a heavy attack that suppresses enemies, as well as using your guard button that you would for swords to drain nearby targets. These can also be picked up by your teammates as well, and the Catalyst makes enemies that take damage from these transmutation spheres take more damage from the Ruinous Effigy itself, which is pretty cool. Has its own pseudo weakening effect for itself, which is kind of cool. For kicking up your exotic slot, this gun definitely has a lot of uniqueness going for it, as well as these transmutation spheres can be very useful in conserving ammo, and the AoE guard effect that drains nearby enemies actually procs volatile rounds if you have volatile rounds proc in that very moment, which is also kind of cool. I should probably say this right now, but for any of the Void trace rifles on this list, whenever volatile flows around on the seasonal artifact, it's going to make them just that much better. Overall, Ruinous Effigy is a really unique exotic, but I definitely believe that there are better trace rifles in the game. So with that being said, I gotta give the Ruinous Effigy a good old B. Now let's go ahead and talk about your mom's favorite trace rifle, and as well as one that is very popular in the community's eyes, especially whenever we have volatile flow around. I'm talking about none other than the good old Hollow Denial straight from Season 17. I'll be frank with you, the big reason why this trace rifle is so popular is the fact that it has lead from gold. It is the only trace rifle in the game that has lead from gold on it. And being that you use trace rifles generally on double special loadouts, you're going to be generating a lot more heavy ammo that just funnels right back into your Hollow Denial. My favorite gun to pair the Hollow Denial with in the kinetic slot is a Chill Clip Riptide with lead from gold. Having 2 lead from gold special weapons and whatever heavy weapon you want, it's a really, really fun playstyle, dude. You're just not running out of ammo and you're just destroying everything. I just have to say it. For your column 4 perks, I believe the more popular options, especially these days, now that we don't have to deal with match game anymore, is definitely Killing Tally. And when Volatile Flow is around, Repulsor Brace is S tier, dude. Like, oh my god, that overshield just casually like that is so good. But when we don't have Volatile Flow, Killing Tally is still pretty useful just to help have some extra damage before reloading or stowing it. This trace rifle saw such a rise in usage during Season 20, ironically, when you can no longer go out and craft it, at least the easy way. These days, you can only get this gun from either Xur selling it or Banshee selling it. And since Lightfall has dropped, you know how many times that they have sold this Hollow Denial? 0! They haven't sold it once. What? But maybe if you're watching this video like 6 months in the future from now, let me know if they've sold it by now, big dog, because if they haven't, that's just cruel. Either way, the Hollow Denial is still a very popular trace rifle, and it is actually going to be our first trace rifle that I have in the S+ category. There is no S-, just S+. Mainly due to the fact that it has lead from gold. Now, I have to ask you a question. As a kid, did you ever go outside? Well, that could be a question right there. I'm just kidding. But did you ever go outside with a magnifying glass during the summer on like a nice, bright, sunny day, go find your nearest anthill and try and focus that magnifying lens to burn an ant? Because I did. I'm pretty sure all of us did. And that leaves us to the Prometheus Lens, bro. You were literally creating a trace rifle way back in the gap on the playground. In all seriousness though, this was a trace rifle introduced in Curse of Osiris. It had that really insane weekend of Crucible where it was just melting everybody. You're literally playing laser tag in the Crucible for a whole weekend. It was kind of crazy. Bungie even released an emblem for it and all. Nowadays, Prometheus Lens, it's a fun gun. They recently made it to where its catalyst does give it incandescent, which definitely makes it synergize a lot more with Solar 3.0 builds. And its prismatic inferno trait is still pretty cool in my opinion. It fires a solar trace beam that creates a field of V energy that grows as the weapon is fired. Sustained damage, apply scorch to the target. You combine that with its newly added incandescent to its catalyst. Really does make this thing a bit of a flamethrower. Not the craziest gun in the world, and in my opinion, not really worth the exotic slot, but it has a fun factor that I can't deny. That being said though, the Prometheus Lens, I do have to put it in the C tier. Not hating on it, I just think there are better options, some that don't cost your exotic slot. Now we segue to Xur's favorite trace rifle, the Retracing Path. This of course being the solo trace rifle released during the 30th anniversary pack that you can get from Dares of Eternity. Now I have heard that this gun used to roll with shoot to loot, maybe in its old perk pool before we got the ability to craft the Dares of Eternity weapons, but as far as to my knowledge, nowadays you can't craft it with shoot to loot, but you can still craft some pretty fun perks on this bad boy. You do have access to subsistence in the third column. Unfortunately, this thing saw a lot of usage with adaptive munitions, but like I said earlier, since we don't have match game anymore, that perk hasn't seen nearly as big of a use or as big of a need, so a lot of people are going with subsistence in the first column. But you do have things like Demolitionist, Frenzy, Incandescent, and the Sleeper Golden Tricorn in the fourth column. It's a pretty nasty trace rifle. However, I just think there's a better legendary solar trace rifle in the game that we will get to later on, but this one is not a bad one in the slightest. You have a lot of freedom and good options in the perk pool, and overall I give this gun, oh damn, I put it in the C tier as well with the Prometheus Lens. Like I said earlier, I don't think any of these guns are bad, just some are better than others. Now we gotta talk about one of the most controversial weapons in the game, one that had the entire community in an uproar whenever this gun got nerfed back in Season 19. I am talking about none other than the Garden's treasured Divinity. Woo, this gun has quite the history, but there's only a few things that we need to talk about it for this video. The main thing is the fact it's a trace rifle, so it makes its way into the video. Nowadays, this gun only provides a weakening effect, which is a 15% debuff. As we all know, it used to provide a 30% debuff as well as a whole crit spot, aka it was perfect during the linear fusion rifle meta. And ironically enough, I literally did a div run yesterday helping out my homie get his Divinity, and I have no footage for it, son of a bitch. But even though this gun got nerfed back in Season 19, it's still very good. Dude, it provides a entire crit bubble and a debuff at the same time. That is very good for any precision weapons, of course, although it doesn't see as much usage these days because we are in a heavy rocket meta, and Tether and tractor cannon just provide a better debuff, especially because rockets don't need to hit crits, and it's a rocket launcher. But the fact that this gun still has built-in overload, quite literally the best overload champion weapon in the game, I mind you, in my opinion. Maybe a chill clip riptide is up there, but you can literally just blicky stick onto an overload champion and stun them with the Divinity. Very, very good in Grandmaster Nightfalls. Honestly, it lost zero value in Grandmaster Nightfalls, in my opinion. But the fact that it doesn't give the 30% debuff anymore does knock it down a peg, in my opinion. Also, the fact is that when you have someone using Divinity, they're committed to that laser beam. They're not gonna not shoot that bitch the entire damage phase. Cenotaph makes the div bitch job even easier these days, and with everything that the Divinity does, I put it borderline, hovering over, looking into the S+ tier. It's in the A+ tier. It's looking into the S+, but because it doesn't give the 30% debuff anymore, I have it in the A+ tier. You could totally argue that should be in the S+ tier, but for me personally, I have it hovering over, looking into the best tier from the A+ tier. Don't crucify me in the comments because I didn't rate your Divinity as the best trace rifle in the game. Thank you very much. Now, if you have ever been to a beach, you've seen some waves. If you've been to some beaches not where I'm from, you've seen some really good waves. Maybe you bring a surfboard or a boogie board, try and ride those waves, enjoy those waves. But if you're from the void, you split those waves, baby. We're talking about the wave splitter now. This bad boy gets really, really juicy whenever you pick up an Orb of Power, which in this day and age is so common, as collecting an Orb of Power is going to grant a period of maximum power that starts with an automatic reload. Sustained fire in this mode suppresses targets, and the harmonic laser has 3 power levels that escalate while the trigger is held down, in case you can't pick up an Orb of Power. This gun doesn't quite have a catalyst just yet, but it's still an absolute monster. As we all saw, Volatile Flow made this thing an absolute beast. If you didn't have a Hollow Denial, you were probably using Wave Splitter last season. It's a very good trace rifle, even when you don't have Volatile Flow. Really fun in some Void builds. And overall, I have this bad boy in the same spot with the Coldheart, with the good old A-. So now we fast forward a little bit and we talk about our last legendary trace rifle of the video, the Acacia's Dejection, straight from the Rooted Nightmares dungeon. This trace rifle has risen up the ranks and is very popular. It has so many good options in its perk pool. You have options in column 1 such as field prep, reconstruction, and rerun rounds, and then column 4 is just stocked to the brim with good perks such as frenzy, target lock, paracausal affinity, even vorpal weapon, along with the good old incandescent. Enhanced reconstruction on this trace rifle puts the magazine, I kid you not, at over 200. A trace rifle with 208 in the mag is pretty damn good. Paracausal Affinity is a new perk that they introduced inside of the Rooted Nightmares dungeon, where if you get a kill with any of the affinity of the weapon, so since it's solar, if you get a kill with anything light affinity related, solar, arc, or void, you're gonna get a damage buff for 6 seconds, 20% to be exact. Really, really good trace rifle. You feel like you don't ever have to reload it. And in situations where you gotta do a mechanic where you gotta like shoot a symbol, maybe shoot some eyes off of Akalos, or the Harpy boss from Garden of Salvation, that 200 mag is just very good, and you love to see it. It helps a lot. Trace rifle's good. I have this bad boy chilling in the S+ tier, my boy. Now, 13 minutes into this video, we are finally getting our first stasis representation, and it's for good reason. I had to save one of the best for last. Aegir Scepter is straight up a monster. When you get a kill with this weapon, you're going to transfer ammo from the reserves to the magazine, which is awesome, and you're going to generate a slowing burst around the defeated target that freezes nearby enemies. Straight up, I'd clear unlock. S tier, super good. Oh yeah, its catalyst allows you to consume your super, overflow the magazine, and empower the beam with bonus damage. It also has the ability to slow and freeze the targets while you have the will given form active, all until the super energy runs out or the weapon is stowed. Can only be activated, of course, whenever your super energy is full. This is a monster on the Warlock because you can basically extend the life of this effect with 2 exotics, the Cenotaph Mask or the good old T-Steps. With the T-Steps, if you're out of ammo, you just sprint until your magazine gets reloaded, and you will not live the will given form buff, which is really cool. This thing's an absolute monster. You don't need to consume your super for it to be a monster. It's just disgusting by itself. It's so good, and it's king. It's amazing. It's in the S+ tier. Why would I not put this bad boy in the S+ tier? It's so good. And finally, we finish off the video with the most recent trace rifle added from the new Ghost of the Deep dungeon from season 21. We are talking about, of course, the SRAM trace rifle, the Navigator. Okay, this trace rifle is pretty cool. First of all, you have the weft cutter ability, which allows you to sever a target with sustained damage. And then the protective weave trait allows you to give an ally woven mail when you shoot it at them. And because you're being such a good teammate and giving your homie woven mail, you're also going to give yourself woven mail when you give your ally woven mail by shooting them with this trace rifle. On top of that, this gun has a secret perk where whenever you sever an enemy, you also get woven mail too, bro. So picture this. You could be a bonk titan with Lorelei or Synthoceps. Synthoceps gang for life. Have restoration up the wazoo. And this trace rifle will allow you to give yourself woven mail on a bonk titan. Just thought that'd be pretty cool to mention. Woven mail stacked with every other form of damage reduction, and combining that with restoration truly makes you unkillable. The catalyst for this gun literally allows you to spawn a grapple point at will for the price of 1 ammo, which is pretty cool. It's a really good trace rifle, has some awesome utility, especially in higher end content when you're taking a lot more damage, or in content in which you're under leveled. And because of that, I have this bad boy chilling in the A+ tier. And 15.5 minutes later, we arrive at the end. If you watch all the way to the end of this video, shout outs to you, bro. This is the longest video I've made in a few years at this point. So if you're still here watching, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Check out the merch store. Consider subscribing. You guys be safe out there. And we'll see you in the next one.